Hey everyone, I'm going to go over some of the new features that you can find in Google Meet. And I have a kind of a split personality situation going on here with some accounts logged onto this Meet already. So you can see that this is the host um, Meet, this is the host platform, dashboard, whatever you want to call it. And I have my students here on the side already logged into this Meet. So what are the new features that we're going to go over? The first one, and you can see, I guess I'll start with the basics. This little button right here, activities, that's where the new features are housed. So once you click on that, you can see we've got three new things. We've got breakout rooms, polls, and Q&A. I'm going to start with polls and Q&A because those are the easiest ones, and then we're going to go back to breakout rooms. So polls. When you click on that, you can start a poll at any time during a meet. Only the host can do that, so your students will not be able to start anything. They'll be able to see this, but once they get to this page, that button, start a poll, will not be there. So you're the only one who can do it. You click on start a poll and it's pretty basic. You can ask a question. So do you prefer chocolate or ice cream? Like that's a question we can answer. So chocolate, ice cream. And if you have more options, you can keep clicking adding option here as many times as you need. And then you have a few options here at the end. You can delete it if you give up on it completely. You can launch it, and that will make it a live poll that your students will be able to see right away. Or you can save it. So let's say you want to create this poll in the beginning of the meet while people are coming in, but to be launched later in the middle of a conversation. So you save it. And you have, once you save it, you have a couple of options. You can edit, go back and fix it and change it, or you can then launch it to make it live. So you click on launch, and this is the live poll, right? So I'm going to switch it to one of my student accounts here. All they are going to see, unfortunately, is this little green circle right here. So you do have to tell them, hey guys, there's a poll in there, go in and answer it, because chances are they're not going to pay attention to that. So you click on activities, you see that there's a poll there, and you can answer it as a student, right? So this student really likes chocolate, so they're going to vote. On the teacher side, I can choose to show everyone the results up until that point. So if I go back to the student, I can see now that there's one vote for chocolate, or I can choose to hide the results, and all they're going to be able to see is that they voted for it already and what they chose. They cannot see who voted for what at any point. It's just numbers. So that information is actually going to come to you once you end the meeting, and there's a whole email with statistics from the meeting that's going to come out. So right now, all the students can see is whether they voted, and then if you show everyone the results, they can see how many people voted for each thing. So this is still a live poll. Once you end the poll, nobody else can vote anymore. It says it's ended, and you know that no more information is going to come in there. So that's pretty much it for polls. You can go ahead and delete it if you want. You can keep it here. It's your choice at that point. No mystery there. So the next thing is your Q&A. And my first question with the Q&A was, how does this differ from the chat component, right? Students can also ask questions in the chat. And I feel like there is a small but significant difference here. So the first thing is, this is not open automatically. Only the host can come in here and say they want to turn on Q&A. And you can toggle back and forth between allowing people to put in questions and closing it. If a student goes into their Q&A. And again, you get the little green dot. It's not ideal, but let's say you tell your students in the beginning of the class, hey, if you have an important question while I'm talking or while the discussion is happening, don't put it in the chat. The Q&A is open. Go, ask it in the Q&A. They'll go in here, and all they can do is they can click on ask a question down here. It's just a box. So they could ask, when is the homework due? And then they just post that question. On their end, they can delete the question that they asked, and they can upvote or like other people's questions or their own question. They can organize it by just saying, I want to see just my questions, or I want to see all of them. And they can order it between oldest, newest, and the most popular. Most popular would be based on how many likes they got. So that's all the students can do on this side. On your side, as a teacher, you can also toggle that between, unanswered questions, answered questions. You can toggle between newest, oldest, and popular, but you can also hide the question. So let's say, I don't know, you got an inappropriate question in there, or it's something that you don't want to address right away, you don't want people to get distracted by it. You can mark it as hidden. And the other students, so I'm going to get someone here who did not ask a question, they wouldn't be able to see it. You can also mark a question as answered. That would be just for your records to make things a little easier. So you can say, okay, we've addressed that. You answer, your student's question. Oh, when is the homework due? It's due this day. You mark that as answered. That means you don't have to deal with it anymore. And when you decide that you want to, look through, if you have multiple questions and you just want to see the ones you didn't get to, you can say, oh, just the unanswered questions first. There's no unanswered here. I'm just going to, hang out. You can also delete questions. That could be a way for you to just say, I've totally addressed this already. I'm going to delete it. As far as I can tell, these questions do get saved every time you go into the same meeting code. So deleting questions might be a good idea after the meeting is over for that day. So again, what is the main difference between a Q&A and a chat? I feel like people would agree with me on this, that the chat can have a lot of noise, right? When students are kind of talking to each other, they're laughing, maybe there's some joking there. And sometimes you miss on actual important questions because of all that conversation, which is, I'm not saying the conversation isn't good. We want people to interact, but you don't want important questions to completely disappear. So it would be a way to filter the questions. So you can tell your students, hey, if you have a question that's really important and you want to make sure that it gets answered, don't put it in the chat, put it in the Q&A. Another thing that you could do would be in a seminar class, if you have students presenting something, you could require the other students to ask them questions, and they could use the Q&A for that. It would keep things organized. And again, the chat would still be able to be that place where people just chat and talk to each other, react to each other. So there is a little difference there between those two features. Again, fairly simple. That's about it for Q&A. So the third and slightly more complicated piece is the breakout rooms. So again, it's in the activities. As the host, you're the only one who can start a breakout room. And as you start it, it defaults to 2 rooms, and it just kind of sends the same amount of kids or participants to each room, right? So what can you do from here? You can increase the amount of rooms, and that also kind of shuffles the kids in a random way. You can decide that once you increase the amount of rooms, you do want to shuffle it harder. So that will move people around a little bit. It seems to me like it might go in alphabetical order initially. So if you don't want things to always default to alphabetical order, you can shuffle it and it randomizes who goes where. You can change the name of a breakout room. So let's say you have you're doing an activity that's team based and each team has a name. You could name those breakout rooms with the team names. And you can also move people individually. So you can be more intentional as to who goes where. Once you have that all set up in the way you want it, all you would do is click create. On your end of things in the main room, you see breakout rooms are in session and you see these little circling things here. That means that those people have not accepted the breakout room. So if I go to each page here, everybody has to actively join a breakout room. They already go to the one that was assigned for them. They don't need to do anything other than click join. You can see by looking at the tabs here that each breakout room becomes its own meeting code that's different from the main room. And this is important in our situation at CPS because it's going to cause a little problem. So I'm going to go back to the main room here. Again, as the host, as the teacher, I can edit breakout rooms, which makes it go back to that initial page. I can end it when we're all done, and we're going to do that when I am done. And I can join each breakout room. So if I say I want to join breakout room 1, I technically leave the main room. So now I'm in breakout room 1, right? You can see that the code matches here. And I'm seeing just this breakout room. I don't see all of them at the same time. That's an impossibility with the Google Meet breakout rooms. So something different from the extension. You're used to be able to see everyone at the same time. I can choose to just go to another breakout room from here, or I can choose to leave, and leaving just brings me back to the main room. Now, the problem that I mentioned before is if something happens in one of the breakout rooms, and let's say a kid loses their connection, they gets logged off, what problem that's gonna cause, and I'm gonna just log one of these off. So this person is gone. I can see right here that someone got disconnected. You see that they got kind of hidden, right? And I can see it says disconnected. If I am in the main, if I am in a breakout room as this happens, that student that got disconnected will not be able to go back into the meet, not to the main room, not to the breakout room. Because technically, if I, as a teacher, if I'm in a breakout room, the main meeting, the main room doesn't exist. So if the kid tries to go back into that main meeting, they won't be allowed to because there isn't an adult, there isn't a teacher in that room. So what is the workaround for that? I would make sure that before any meeting where you are planning on doing a breakout room, before any meeting starts, make sure that you tell them an easy way to communicate with you. Remind, Schoology, email, anything where they can get to you in a second. Because if they get disconnected, you have to go back to the main room so they can then connect back in. In my case here, I'm actually going to have to allow this person to go in. Actually, I don't have to. Sorry, I lied there because they were already authorized before. But none of these are CPS accounts, so things work a little differently. But if you have a student account, I'm in the main room, they would come into the main room, and then you would have to then push them back into their breakout rooms. So be aware of that. That is one little problem that Google Breakout Rooms is going to cause for you. Now, okay, so if you want to end your meeting, if you are in the breakout room, in the main room as a teacher, the kids can go back to the main room to ask you a question or to tell you, hey, do you want to join us? Because we got something that we need to talk to you. But when you're done, and you want to end breakout rooms, you just click end. And then on their side, they're going to get a little pop-up that's going to say breakout rooms have ended, and they have to click on return. As they do that, they all slowly come back to the main room, and you can see them kind of disappearing from the breakout rooms as it goes. And that's it. And then the breakout rooms are over at that point. It's pretty easy for the students. This breakout room seems to be a lot easier. You don't have to tell them anything. You don't have to give them a meeting link. You just click on start and they just click on join, and that's it. So on their end, this seems to be a little easier than the extension. On your end, it is easier to set up, but it will come with its own set of issues. So again, students will have trouble coming back into the meeting once they get logged off. You got to make sure that you are in the main room if that happens. And you're not able to see multiple breakout rooms at once. You can only see your room. So that's mostly it. I've got some written guides if you don't want to sit through this whole video. Although by now, if you're hearing this, you have sat through this whole video. So hopefully this helped you, and let me know if you have any other questions.